Welcome back to yet another episode on lockdown of Just One Question. And I'm really honored and thrilled to have a great friend of Public Words, Shanthi Flynn, here with me today. Shanthi is the executive's executive. She spent 30 years in executive roles at places like Ford, in the UK, to Walmart globally. And most recently, she was the CHRO, I think I know what that means, of the Adecco Group, which is a Fortune 500 company that's probably less well known than Ford or Walmart, but equally important and interesting company that does all kinds of things in the hiring and personnel and HR world. She's now a keynote speaker, and she advises executive teams, and she's on boards, and she's doing all kinds of important stuff like that from her home in Europe. And I won't get any more precise than that in case she's under the witness protection program right now. I don't know, just checking in. How are you doing, Shanthi?
I'm doing fine, thank you, Nick. The weather is fantastic here in Zurich. So no, I'm not under a witness protection scheme. So
excellent.
Yeah, we've had an interesting a few months with lockdown, and my kids being homeschooled and my husband being a homeschool teacher. So everyone's been teaching or learning in my house.
Fantastic. So it was very foresightful, if that's the word. That's not a word. It was very far-seeing of you to marry somebody who could do homeschooling when the time came. That was brilliant.
Yeah, it's a visionary.
Yeah.
But, and completely accidental.
So many marriages are, yes. I mean, in terms of the future needs and issues. Okay, so before I dig myself in any deeper, we've all been forced to do a lot more in the virtual space, of course, during this pandemic. And what I'm curious about now is what in your personal experience, in the work that you've been able to do, has gone well, perhaps even better in the virtual space, and what has just been, frankly, not as good as face-to-face. So please take it away, Ms. Flynn.
Well, to be honest with you, I think I think a lot depends on who you're dealing with and what personality you are yourself as to whether it's easy or difficult. I personally, I don't mind the lockdown. I'm okay dealing with people remotely. And for a number of years in my various careers, we were in virtual environments anyway. So we're on video conferencing and all of that. And whereas before that used to be the domain of businesses, multinationals, now that's the domain of everybody, like it or not. And it's historically it's been fraught with problems, because when you're dealing with people in different countries and different cultures, you've got different ways of communicating. So I suppose I was a bit more used to that remote communications and the things that work and don't work. And for me, when you're dealing with people in a room, you can see how people are behaving. You can see reactions more easily. That non-verbal communication is much easier to read. Whereas when everyone's, half a millimeter big on a screen, if that, or even worse still, a kind of non-image, just kind of cartoon drawing of you, then you don't have any clue as to how people are receiving what you're saying. And so those can be difficult. So it really depends on how well you deal with remote communications, but it also is a subject matter as well. Mm-hmm. So there's some subject matters that if it's very process driven and it's quite task and it doesn't depend on the relationships that you have with people, then I think it's okay. If you're saying, I need to get this done by this date, and you're agreeing what I'd call putting procedural stuff, it's not so hard. But if you're trying to build a relationship with someone or, connect for the first time, I think it's harder.
So if If we're communicating with people all over the world virtually, one of the things that happens as a result of that, of course, there's a time difference and we all have to do the math and figure that out, but also we're at very different biorhythms. And I'm wondering if you've experienced issues around that, and if so, what you do about it.
Well, I think the interesting thing about, where you are in terms of your own body clock is so individual. Like some people are morning people, some people are evening people. So if you're having a conversation with someone who's on the other side of the world and they're on their morning and you're in your evening, it very much depends on what kind of person you are as to how you're going to deal with that. I remember when I was working in Hong Kong and I was dealing at the very end of my day with the US, and people were at the very beginning of their day. Mm-hmm. I was exhausted. I'd done a full day's work. I was at the end of my day. Mm-hmm. I'm a morning person. And so you're more cranky, you can be short-tempered, and then when you're on a call with someone who maybe only sees you in that mode, they might think of you as being tired, cranky, and not thinking straight. So it's quite easy to misjudge people if that's all you know. If you've then dealt with somebody real time and you know their personality and you know that actually that's just them at the wrong end of their day or the wrong end of their biorhythm, then you can make concessions. Mm-hmm. But if that's all you know about them, you might judge their personality that way and say, actually, that person's not that easy to deal with. Yeah. So I think you have to be a bit mindful that, and maybe you ask them, how, at the beginning of a conversation, are you in a high energy mode or a low energy mode? And you can start to judge whether people are sort of feeling tired because that's just where they are.
Great tip from Shanthi Flynn there on thinking about biorhythms. I appreciate that because I'm often dealing now with people at the beginning of their days or the end of my days, and so that's very useful. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate your answer to just one question, and stay safe there in Zurich.
Thank you very much, Nick, and you take care and be healthy.